and we can get you signed up for a future webinar. I know most of you. For those that I don't, my name is Lisa Jordan. I'm the managing director of the IEA, and I'm also the executive director of the Charlotte Executives Association, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I see a few familiar faces on the call today and some of our past webinar presenters and future webinar presenters as well. So Ira's joining us. He's giving the webinar in June. I know Jennifer gave a webinar recently. I met Andrea in Detroit at the IEA conference last year, which is my nice segue into reminding you that the IEA conference is coming up September 30th through October 2nd. Why were those dates escaping me for just a minute? But Cindy's on the call, so Cindy could chime in with that if I blustered it anymore. But anyway, we will be in Akron, Ohio for the 30th anniversary of the IEA. The Akron Execs is helping the IEA host this conference, and we are looking forward to a great turnout from all chapters. This is not just for board members, not just for executive directors. This is for anyone who is a business owner and a member of an executive association. We would love to have you there to network and to meet other business owners and to hear our great speakers. On the IEA website right now, you can see the whole agenda and the lineup of all the great speakers that we're going to have. Our social event is to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, and Akron Execs has done a great job of putting together some other social events kind of on the wings of the conference, golf at the famous Firestone Country Club, and then also a visit to the NFL Hall of Fame, if that's your jam. So would love to see you all out in Akron. And that registration is open now, so please join us. Okay, you did not come to hear me talk, so let me introduce Karina Baldwin. Karina Baldwin is a member of the Seattle Executives Association. She helps female founders master their minds using science-backed theories. She runs True Adventure Co., a mental performance coaching and adventure retreats agency, as well as CEO Society, a women's networking community local to the Pacific Northwest. As a mental performance coach with a master's in performance psychology, she's been working with elite performers for the better half of a decade, originally working with collegiate athletes, then contracted by the U.S. Army, and worked with thousands of soldiers to help them be the best version of themselves. She now works with female founders to teach them the mental skills based on real science to outsmart their own brains. Take it away, Karina.
Hello, friends. So yeah, that's all my bio about me, and those are a lot of my stats. I feel like I've lived many, many lives in my early 20s, going from being a collegiate athlete myself to working in the sport and performance psychology world, working as a mental performance coach for athletes, and then being contracted as one of the 16 mental performance coaches at Joint Base Lewis McChord, JBLM, out here in Tacoma, Washington. And then in 2021, I started my own private practice, and 2022, I went full time. And we're going to get a little bit more about me. I'm going to share some personal things as well about today. But we're going to go ahead and just dive on in and get started. Like I said, for everybody, if you have any questions along the way, one, you can either pop them in the chat or you can just simply unmute. I love being interactive. I would love for you to be like, hang on, Karina, like I have a question about XYZ, or hey, I need some help on how do I apply this to my own life. Everything that I teach you today, ideally, you can quite literally at the end of this hour, take and run and apply it to your own life. I want everyone to walk away from this knowing how to be more resilient and the actual science and the actual skills in order to do so. That's my main purpose. I want to clear up exactly what a mental performance coach is and what performance psychology is, because I think that especially when we are in the day and age where everyone is some type of coach. I mean, I have two coaches in here. Tucker is an executive coach. Ira, you said that you're a life coach. And what makes us different and what makes each of our fields a little bit different, and particularly, I can't speak to what each of them do because one, not them. But two, I know exactly what our field is, and mental performance coach is under the umbrella of sport and performance psychology. So everyone that calls themselves everyone who ethically calls themselves a mental performance coach must have a master's in sport and performance psychology. We also have a governing body similar to CPAs or lawyers where we actually have to take a certification test in order to do so. So we have to have over 200 hours working with sport and performance some kind of field, and over 100 of them have to be in some kind of physical performance. So when I was working with soldiers, we worked on PT, working with them on their physical aspect of things, not just the mental game. I worked in the collegiate field as well with underneath Florida State University within the athletic department. So we focus primarily originally on the physical performance. You can then take all of the skills that you use in the physical performance and bring it into the business world, which is what a lot of us have done, is we realize that, hey, athletes aren't the only population that would find these mental skills incredibly helpful, and more mental performance coaches are dabbling in the business world in leadership positions to help optimize those high performers and their mentality that comes with the high pressures of running a business or running a Fortune 500 company or whatever that leadership looks like. So we are specialists that train athletes, performers, professionals, and really focus on the psychology and the mindset side of performance, right? So we deal a lot with group dynamics, performance anxiety, performing under stress. I've worked with clients anything from overcoming imposter syndrome to improving confidence to handling public speaking and being able to articulate themselves better. So those are kind of some of the things that we work on in the business world. And that's what a mental performance coach is. So like I said, a master's in sport and performance psychology. We have over 200 hours of supervised work before we can even apply to get a certification. So I was very lucky underneath Florida State University when I was there studying that I actually graduated with over half of those hours studying underneath Dr. Greg Chow, who's now the sports psychologist for the Dodgers. So, which if you are in America, honestly, if you're from Toronto either, you know that the Dodgers had a very, very good season. So Dr. Greg Chow is on top of the world recently. So I was very lucky to study underneath him. Let's talk about why you are here today. If you have ever had a flavor of these thoughts, raise your hand. I should be better than this. I can't slow down. I have to prove something to myself. I don't want to do this, but I have to. If I stop, everything falls apart. Almost everybody, if not everybody, has had a flavor of these thoughts before. And that's why we're here. Burnout is so very real, especially in the high performers world. Burnout is often not about working too much, but it's actually about fighting yourself the entire time. Andrea, did you raise your hand for a question? Maybe we just raised our hand on accident. Okay, I'm going to keep going. If you do have a question, go ahead and just unmute yourself. No need to raise your hand. You can just, hello, my dear.
Sorry, it was just raising because yes, I've had those thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I love that. Yes, absolutely. We have.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. We're so wrong in having these thoughts. Everyone has had a flavor of these thoughts. So if you have had these, I want to tell you that you are in the right place. And by the end of this, we're going to have some tools, a framework that's actually going to help you get out of these thoughts. I'm also going to have some time at the end to talk about some Q&A and ask any questions if you need to. So a little bit more about me. On the left, I have some stats. Like Lisa listed out, I worked for the Army. I worked for Florida State University within the athletic department. This was the team that I worked for. These kids, quite literally, now they're full-grown adults. Now they're like in their mid-20s, late 20s. But they were the co-ed, a portion of the co-ed cheer team. And if you want to work with some badass, incredible athletes, these people, quite literally, these men are throwing these girls 10, 15, 20 feet in the air, and they're trusting each other quite literally with their lives. So that was very cool to work with them over the course of the 2 years at Florida State University. And it was so much fun. This particular athlete right here, he actually is very successful in New York City now and is very well known in the media space and actually has been on the Drew Barrymore show. He's been featured in Vogue. He's doing very, very well. And he's just a gem of a human, but side story there. Here's me in my full Kevlar. When I worked for the US Army, I was doing a ride along for a Striker, which is a giant tank, and you have to have full gear. Obviously, we're stateside. We were down in Yakima. We were doing training, but we still have to have full gear of everything. So I snuck a photo selfie of myself because I was like, look how cool I look right now, nerding out. I'm like 23 at the time and working with the US Army, but a little bit of personal things about me, who I am, and honestly, what makes me capable of talking about burnout rather than just my stats and the stuff that I have researched. But since moving to Washington, I have adopted some of the most incredible sports in the entire world. I love them with everything in my being, and I think that they are some of the epitome of humans can do hard things. I've been skiing my entire life, but I started ski mountaineering when I came out here. So much so that actually, if you know, Mount Rainier, which is a volcano in Washington State. It is the largest mountain in Washington. It's the tallest mountain that we have here. This was the journey to reach the summit. And it was something that my friends and I did unguided. We have incredible knowledge by just experience and courses that we've taken that we've actually successfully been able to summit Rainier. And this was part of that journey. This was a snow bridge that we had to cross. So you can see that it drops off on either side. We have ropes hooked up to one another. So this person is hooked up to this person who's hooked up to me. You can see my rope right here in the second photo as well. This was sunrise had just happened. We're probably about maybe just shy of 1,000 feet from the crater, the summit of Rainier in this photo. So we summited about 8:30 in the morning and then made our way trek back down afterward. I also started rock climbing in 2022 and I absolutely love it. It is so much fun. Here I am lead climbing in Smith Rock, which is a natural state park in Oregon. And then this is my pride and joy. His name's Foster. I love him. He's a Siberian Husky, and he's just the most precious little hunk I've ever met in my entire life. He turned 6 next month, and I just love him. So this is a little bit about me and what I have done over the years of becoming the person that I am. That's allowing me to talk about burnout and talk about more mental resilience. Humans can do hard things, and I want you to take that message away here is that burnout is not something that doesn't happen to anyone. It happens to everyone at some point, and we're going to talk about why that happens. What we're covering today is overworking alone is not the cause of burnout. Just doing too much is not the only cause of burnout. We're going to talk about the 5 hidden drivers of burnout and why high performers are more prone to this than non-high performers. And then we're going to talk about what actually prevents burnout. So if you're wanting to become more resilient, if you're wanting to figure out how to actually stop the burnout cycle, you're going to definitely want to stick out until the very end. So let me say this again. I've already said this twice, but if there is only one thing that you take away from this webinar is that burnout occurs not only when you overwork, but it's when you emotionally fight yourself while you are working. A lot of the time, all of us think at some point we have thought it's because I'm doing too much. It's because there's too much on my plate. There's too much responsibility. I have too many things on my to-do list. I am overworking. I'm working 12-hour days, 16-hour days. But the reality is it's not about the overwork. It's about the emotional weight that you're putting behind the work. So I want to ask you, do you like the reason that you are tired? Who has ever worked a 10-hour day, 12-hour day, 16-hour day, and you get home and you're absolutely exhausted, but you were like, wow, that was so much fun. I enjoyed 90% of what I did today. Maybe you were presenting, maybe you were doing client work, maybe it's a certain type of client that you like working with. You got home and you were like, wow, that was a really productive day. I felt great. I worked really hard. Yeah, so many people, right? It's so great when we feel that way, when we're excited that we're tired. We've all experienced what that's like. We've also experienced only 2 hours of work, and it feels like you've been working for 4 days straight, right? Where you're like, I'm exhausted. Everything is terrible. I hate it. I'm so tired. And I clocked in 2 hours ago. And the clock, right? It's like you're literally watching the seconds pass and you're exhausted. Humans can do hard things. Humans can do so many incredibly hard things. We train for marathons. We train for ultras. There was a woman who just broke the record for like the longest ultra, and she won the entire thing over all the men that are in the category as well, which is so very impressive. And it was like 500 miles. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but it was something crazy, like insane. Nolan might be able to tell me what that is, but if he's listening to this,
250 miles. The
200.
The Cocodona 250-mile race, Rachel and Traken.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I was like, I feel like Nolan would know who I'm talking about right now. Humans can do incredible things. She trained for this for years leading up to this. 250 miles. That's insane. That's crazy. People have babies. People summit mountain. People can hold their breath for 5+ minutes. I think the record is like 8, 9, 10 minutes of holding their breath. You all have built businesses. Humans can absolutely do hard things without burning out. It is possible. And I'm sure you've experienced months or even years of your life where you did not experience burnout. And then there's been weeks, months, years where you are on a burnout cycle, where you burn out, you quite literally feel your flame extinguish, and you have to quite literally check out, go on a vacation for 3 weeks, come back, and then you're like, I still don't fully feel rested, but I guess it's time to keep going. Time to clock back in. And that's what happens when you are emotionally fighting yourself, because effort is not the enemy. Let me say that again. Effort is not the enemy. Humans can do incredibly hard things. Our mind is incredibly capable of doing hard things. But healthy effort looks like purpose-driven. We are choosing it. We are energized. We are flexible. It is sustainable with the effort that we do. Burnout effort looks like fear-driven, forced, draining, rigid, and emotionally costing. Okay? So we have to look at how our effort is being expended every single day in whatever cycle that you are doing, because maybe your burnout cycle is happening at work. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's happening at home. Maybe you're noticing that you're constantly fighting with yourself, with your spouse, with kids, whoever lives in your home. If you are constantly feeling that emotional turmoil that's happening, it doesn't just have to happen at work. Maybe it's happening with your training for a marathon. Our body can physically feel it. If all of a sudden we are relying too much on discipline and we're being forced to do that marathon because we told all of our friends we would, we're no longer choosing to be excited by this marathon. It's not just work. It's not just home life. It's not just personal goals. Burnout can happen and can spread throughout our entire lives. So we have to check in. What type of healthy effort can we lean more towards? And how can we let go of some of this burnout effort? Now, if you're like immediately, hold on, but I'm terrified of letting my business go under. I have to show up because I'm the owner. My team relies on me. Of course, I have to do everything. We have SOPs to follow. I just have to do this. Don't get me wrong, we all have these thoughts, and that's naturally what happens in the brain. So we're going to take a second to reflect. Where in your life or your business are you emotionally fighting yourselves? Again, it's not effort that's the enemy. It is the emotional turmoil, stress, weight that we are doing that's going to actually cause us this stress. So I want you to just take a second, and I would love for you guys to either unmute and share or drop it in the chat of why or where you feel like you are emotionally fighting yourself. What category? You don't have to necessarily share everything, but is there a place, is there a time that you feel that you are emotionally fighting yourself? Where are you emotionally fighting yourself? Doing what I need to do instead of what I want to do. Yeah, John, I see this all the time. I see a lot of my clients that put that weight on themselves of like, I have to, I should, this identity of I'm the business owner, I'm the responsibility, I'm this, right? This is who I am. Wendy, I don't know how to say no. Yeah, people pleasing for sure. Where someone's like, can you do this? And you're like, I don't have time, but like, sure. Tucker, the push, the pull between work and family. Yeah, the quote unquote work-life balance that doesn't exist. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, guys. All right, let's talk about these hidden factors. Being a boss and being a friend and caring. Yeah, all of these things, especially as a female. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give you these 5 hidden drivers of burnout, and I want you to categorize yourself if you feel one over another. Okay. So the first one is chronic self-pressure. These are the I should. This is I should be doing more. I should add this to my plate. I should be doing more marketing. I should add another person. I should fire that person. Your nervous system cannot distinguish between a physical threat and constant internal criticism because your brain is a caveman brain. Your brain does not actually understand the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and adding more to your to-do list. Isn't that insane? That's crazy, right? But your primitive brain, so if you can see me, your primitive brain is back here near your brainstem. Okay, your primitive brain is only focused on surviving. Your primitive brain is only going to be focused on keeping you safe and secure. And self-pressure does that. If I add more to my list, then I start to feel that pressure and I don't have to succeed and thrive. Your nervous system gets overwhelmed. We want to stay in our comfort zone. But up here, the front part of your brain, so right behind your forehead, is what's called the prefrontal cortex. This is the last part of your brain to develop. Most of the time, it develops to your mid to late 20s. Isn't that crazy? Your mid to late 20s before you have the ability to be full-blown logic-based decisions. This chronic self-pressure happens in that caveman brain. It's not logical because I guarantee all of you have said the statements, I know logically this is what I can do, but it's not what I feel like doing, right? Logically, I shouldn't put this much pressure on myself. But I'm going to do it anyway because that's who I am, right? Who has said a flavor of that? Logically, I would never hold somebody else to this standard, but I'm going to hold myself to that standard. Yeah, totally. The chronic self-pressure happens. I should be doing more. I tell my clients this all the time. It's shoulding all over yourself. Should be doing more. I should be doing more physical effort. I should be working out more. I should be getting up at 5 a.m. I should be having a healthy breakfast. I shouldn't be having coffee on an empty stomach. I should be mentoring my employees more. I should be shoulding all over yourself. Okay. All of this self-pressure happens again and again, dysregulates your nervous system because your nervous system thinks that a saber-toothed tiger is coming for you. All right, our second hidden driver of burnout is identity performance. This is just who I am. This is you relying on discipline. This is you performing in some capacity, feeling like you are on all the time. I don't know about you guys. I'm very good, especially if you're in some version of an executives association. You are part of a networking group. You are part of a networking community. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I actually am an introvert. And for those who know me, they're like, no way, you talk to everybody. You are a chatty Cathy. I am, and I'm really good at it. But that's my being on. If I had to do that every single day, if I had to go in and talk to new people and it's a good skill that I have and I'm very good at it. And I will be honest that I would consider myself an expert in talking to people. But it is an identity and it is a performance. Now, when I say performance, doesn't mean fake. Performance does not mean fake. Because the reality is we all need to perform in some aspect. We all have a level of performance. Sales calls are performance. Pitches are performances. When we're doing our service for our clients, it is a performance. A performance is in the sports psychology world is defined as a clear start, a clear end, and you care about the results. A clear start and a clear end, and you care about the results. So for networking, for me, start, I walk in the room, end, I walk out of the room, and I care about how I'm perceived when I am networking. This presentation is a performance. At 12 o'clock Pacific time, I started. At 1 p.m., I'm going to be done. And I care about how you guys are receiving this information. I care about how I articulate myself. That is a performance. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm holding a mask and being fake. It means that I care about what I'm doing. But if you are constantly being seen as quote unquote on, or you are creating a facade about yourself, this is who I am in these particular rooms, you're going to start to feel a misalignment happen because it takes a lot of work in order to do that. I cannot run a presentation 8 hours a day 365 days a year. I can't do it. It's not possible. So we have to understand what our identity is and how do we find alignment there. Our next one is emotional suppression. Who has ever buried their emotions because they don't have time to feel their feelings? I don't got time for that. I'll be sad later. I'll cry later. I'll feel guilt later. I'll feel grief later. I'll be stressed later. I have to just do this now. I have to focus. I'm scared, but I got to move anyway. If we suppress this, we're not letting it out. If you didn't know, when you physically cry, and not just well up tears, but literally let tears actually come out of your face, it releases cortisol. It releases the stress hormone from your body. That's why, with little kids even, and anyone, just let out a good cry. It actually scientifically does help you process emotions. I tell my clients this. I'm like, if you ever feel emotionally overwhelmed, go out to your car, set a 5-minute timer, and cry. Let it out. Make it happen. You have 5 minutes in a day. Even if you're driving somewhere. Now, if you're like sobbing and you can't see, don't drive. But set a 5-minute timer. Let yourself scream, cry, hit your steering wheel, let it out. Emotional suppression is going to be so quickly led to burnout because you're not letting yourself process all of the things that you need to process. This doesn't have to take days. It can quite literally take 5 minutes. Set a timer, let it all out, and go. All right, fourth one, lack of psychological agency. This is choice. This is a fancy word to say choice. If you do not have choice, then you're not going to want to do these things. I was on a sales call yesterday with someone who has a big goal of becoming a top advisor in her firm. And I asked her, why do you want this goal? And she said, for her company, which is a probably billion-dollar company, she said, it's very well known that like when you reach this goal, you get this amount of status, and everyone, it's like set in our, path that when you reach my level, X amount of years, that like this is what you do. And I said, wait a second. You just told me why your company wants you to be a top advisor, but why do you want to be a top advisor? Right? Because the lack of psychological choice, the lack of her being like, oh, I'm choosing to do this goal, she will so quickly burn out, because then she's working for a billion-dollar industry of this billion-dollar goal that someone else gave her. Versus it can be the same goal, but why do you want to achieve this? Why do you feel like you want choice to achieve this next promotion, this next milestone? And then I asked her and she said, well, I make more money. And I was like, hell yeah, let's go make some more money. Why do we care about money? Because on the surface level, money's just money. But if we ask ourselves why we care about money, well, money gives us more freedom. We can go buy that couch we want. We can go on a longer vacation. We can go afford more things. You can send your kid to the school that they want. You can give them an easier life. You can live an easier life. You can buy better food. You can go get a massage every week. That is why she actually wants to do it. Not because it's quote unquote what you do. So the choice in your work and acknowledging the choice is where you're going to prevent some of that burnout. And then, of course, we have cognitive resistance, our fifth hidden driver behind burnout. Cognitive resistance. This is overthinking, second guessing, perfectionism. What I diagnose them with is quote unquote never enoughness syndrome. Never enough syndrome, never enough clients, never enough work, never enough money, never enough time, where you are overthinking, second guessing, everything must be perfect. Wendy is like, that's me. Wherever that friction was from that last slide, go ahead and identify which category that you fall into. Maybe you find a few of them. Go ahead and drop them in the chat. Drop them in the chat or unmute yourself. Where have you felt one or multiple of these hidden drivers behind burnout? For Wendy, it was cognitive resistance. I see a lot of my clients. Wendy's like, just kidding, all of them. All of them. A lot of us feel all of them. Identity performance. Maybe we feel a little bit of like, I feel like I have to be on. I feel like I have to do this. This is who I am. I'm the CEO. We've all felt versions of these. Absolutely. So let's talk about why we are subject to this. Why, as high performers, do we believe this? Because your brain is good at what it does. You have very convincing thoughts. You're intelligent. You've made it this far in life, right? And I talk with my clients about this all the time. Everyone in this room is a successful person. Yet your brain has been doing this. Maybe you've been on a burnout cycle for a couple of years now, where you feel yourself circling and circling that burnout again and again and again. Because guess what? You can build a successful business while being stressed out. Absolutely, you can do it. We see it all the time. God knows how many Hallmark movies have done that, where they're like, look at this person in New York City who's burned their entire life to the ground, but hey, they have that executive title. Are they successful? Yeah. But then they have to go to a farm and fall in love in order to understand the true meaning of Christmas, right? High achievers have a very, very capable brain, and you've made it this far while being this stressed out, while being on the cycle of burnout. So, of course, we believe where our thoughts. When thoughts show up of, I can't show fear, I'm the leader, or I'm stressed for a reason, you don't question it because your brain is very, very good at what it does. Your brain is not meant to thrive, it is meant to survive. It is meant to stress you out. It is meant to keep you safe. Because if it stresses you out, it's saying that, hey, this is dangerous. Because success is dangerous. Success means more people are going to see you. Success means more people are going to be on your payroll. Success means that more people are going to rely on you, expect something of you, come after you, criticize you more, be more likely to show you that you're not capable. We risk our identity, we risk our financial stability, we risk so much by being seen and being more successful. So our brain wants to keep us small. Our brain wants to keep us surviving. And it's really good at that. Business is 80% psychology and 20% strategy. What is going to happen in your brain, and I'm sure everyone has experienced this, is you're like, let me hire that fractional CFO. Let me hire that fractional marketing agency. Let me hire a social media person. Let me hire somebody that has a business strategy, a business coach. And why strategy feels good, but it doesn't fix it, is it gives you temporary control. You're like, hey, I'm so burnt out and there's so much stuff on my plate. So I'm just going to hire someone to take something off. But then you realize most of the time that that didn't actually work. Sometimes it does, because guess what? 20% of the time it is strategy. Okay. I'm not saying that this will never work, but a lot of the time, even if we hire the perfect person, the right person, it's not going to change anything because it doesn't hit what we are actually needing to hit, which is the psychology behind it, your brain, your mentality, your mindset. So strategy gives you temporary control, cognitive certainty, and an external focus. You're like, and now it's Sally's job to fix the marketing, and she's going to bring in more leads. And so we're going to get more clients and we can make payroll next month. But then guess what? Sally brings in more clients and you're still stressed out. But now you're stressed out because you are overloaded with client work. Instead of where do I find new clients? Now you have to deliver on all of your services. You're just stressed out in a different way. There is more work on your plate in a different way. Okay. The internal wiring is still exactly the same. Okay. Business always regresses to familiar territory. So, how do we fight this? These are the psychological upgrades to actually be more resilient. Number one, stop forcing everything. We just have to take a breath and breathe, that we can actually slow ourselves down long enough to understand, to shift away from constantly putting out fires to taking logical action. So you can ask yourself, what am I making harder through resistance? Are you forcing motivation? Because the reality is, if you're forcing motivation, you're probably relying on discipline. One of my coaches who works under me, I was telling her about how we were going through a staff meeting, and I was telling her about how I was stressed about finding new clients to fill our client workload. And then she asked me a question. She started coaching me, which I loved. I was like, oh, she's smarter than me. This is great. My team is amazing. I love her. And Siobhan asked me, she said, are you relying on discipline or are you relying on motivation? And I was like, oh, holy crap. I'm relying on discipline. I'm forcing myself to show up. I'm forcing myself because this is just like that hidden driver of burnout, this identity. I am this person. I am the business owner. Of course, I show up to networking groups. Of course, I go and network. Of course, I go and introduce myself. Of course, I run webinars. Of course, I do this. I show up on social media. Of course, I do this because this is who I am. And she's like, you're relying on discipline. You're disciplined. You'll wake up and you'll go do the things because that's just what you do. You're not choosing to do this because you enjoy it. You're not relying on motivation. So we want to be careful that we're not forcing things. We're not solely relying on discipline. Now, I want you to look at the second one, build self-trust. Self-trust is built by keeping promises to yourself. That you actually are so good at what you do that you are capable of being a disciplined individual. This is who you are. Someone that is resilient, that is capable of showing up. Building self-trust has the ability for you to pivot, to recover, to rest, to actually handle uncertainty. Often with this self-trust, the idea, one of the, I think, most powerful thoughts that a business owner can think is, excuse my language, but fuck it, I'll figure it out. Fuck it, I'll figure it out. Who has said yes to a client or said yes to a offer that they weren't sure they were going to be able to deliver? They were like, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm going to say yes. Yeah. And then F it, we're going to figure it out because that's what we do. And you show up and to an extent you figure it out. You deliver it to the clients and you're like, never going to tell them that I didn't have those, that set up before them or that they were the first person that I did this for. Often humans don't fear hard work. They fear failure, judgment, slowing down, disappointment. So it's your job to build that self-trust. Show up and keep your promises to yourself. Creating more congruency. I hate the word alignment. I hate it. I think it's a buzzword and it lives in like Vogue and Pinterest boards. Life alignment, whatever. Congruency is what matters. What feels energizing to you? Is there an aspect of marketing that you do love? Is there an aspect of networking that you do love? I personally like hearing people's story. I leave networking conversations. I have no idea what people do sometimes. No idea. But I connected them on a personal level. And that's often when people walk away, they're like, oh, I know Karina's personality. I know she goes and climbs mountains. They know what I did that weekend. They don't know the client work that I do. Is that helpful to an extent? For me, that's what's actually going to be an energizing conversation. That's a quote unquote alignment for me. Okay. Where are you abandoning yourself? Where are you putting on a face, putting on a facade, doing a performance for yourself? And then our last one is nervous system regulation. Oh, this is not a bubble bath and wine. This is not time off. This is not a vacation. Nervous system regulation actually sounds like emotional regulation, self-compassion, honesty, boundaries, and psychological safety. That is what nervous system regulation actually sounds like. This is something that I work with my clients on all the time. The recovering people pleasers, the perfectionism, the lack of boundaries. Clients are texting them at 8:30 p.m. I help them create those boundaries for themselves and follow through with it. A client of mine, she owned a salon. She's a hairstylist and owns a wedding makeup artist and hairstyle company. Her salon, she was like, I'm working 7 days a week. Weddings are on the weekend, and then I'm cutting hair Monday through Friday. And I was like, what if we just block out a day? And she was like, well, I can't block it out. I have clients. And I was like, what if you block it out and they can't book? And she was like, they're going to get mad at me. And I was like, well, let's see. Let's see what happens. So like a month out, she blocked off a random Thursday, every Thursday. Not a single client messaged her. Not a single one. No one said anything. She did it for 2 months straight. And she was like, Karina, I got my time back. And I was like, ain't it crazy if we just put boundaries up that people respect them? Because often we're overthinking these boundaries and not giving ourselves or the people that are around us enough credit. We all work with humans. We are all human. We can all understand, right? And if you train your clients to respect these boundaries, there's never going to be a question. Now, if you train them to violate your boundaries, it will be a fight to retrain them to respect boundaries. I work Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4 p.m. Most of the time, I actually work Fridays as well. Sometimes I work outside of that. Sometimes I work at 9 p.m. But my clients know if it's outside of Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4 p.m., they are not hearing from me. They can message me all day long. And I say, do it. Message me, but you won't hear from me until I'm within those office hours. And I've never once had a client freak out. Never once. Because I've trained them to respect those boundaries.
Karina, can I ask a question?
Totally.
So I started doing that. I've started taking, like, for instance, Fridays off in the springtime here.
Mm-hmm.
I used to, I have a team of 3 other designers, so there's 4 of us in the showroom here.
Mm-hmm.
I was, when I would, come and go in the office, say I, had an appointment at the bank or I had to go make a delivery or whatever, I would always let my team know, Andrea, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go visit Mrs. Smith. I'm going to go do this. I would always have it on our calendar so they would know my comings and goings. Well, then when I would have to do something personal, it was like, well, where are you going? When are you going to be back? And I said, what the hell? So then I stopped putting anything on the calendar at all. Like nothing. No one knew where I was going. It was no one's business. And I've been doing that, but I just kind of like, now I'm feeling like, do they think I'm just going home to eat bonbons? Like, so now I'm feeling the guilt. So what is appropriate? Like, do I let them know or not? So that I always like teach. So I haven't been, like, since the beginning of the year. I just marked my Andrea off, but they don't know where I'm going, whether it's personal, business. I'm running a market. It's not, I don't say anything, but I kind of want to know what everybody else's thoughts are in your office, like your other team members. What do you guys do for that?
I would ask a question, and this is how like coaching is and what working with me sounds like. One, I'm never going to give you a straightforward answer, and it's going to be your favorite thing and your worst thing. So I would turn this into the question of what information is going to benefit that employee, that team member. That's what you should be telling them. So you should have them in mind. Why are you sharing this information? Is it because you feel guilty, or is it because they need that information in order to know that, hey, she's at a doctor's office, I can't call her, right? Mm-hmm. So to your question of how much should you share, I would say you need to look at your team and what's going to be most beneficial of knowledge of your team. Because when it comes to group dynamics, there's some things that you share with the team and some things you don't, right? In a home life, you don't let the kids that know that mommy and daddy are fighting right now. They don't need to know that. That's not going to help them. So if you have a business partner and you guys are going through a massive tiff, it's do that behind closed doors until you guys have a forward plan. Same thing with your time off or wherever you're going. What do your employees need to know? Do they need to know that they can't reach you? Or do they need to know that, hey, actually, you can call me because I'm just at home eating lunch? So maybe there's another code, or maybe there's a color coding system. Maybe there's something that you can write there that, like, Andrea's callable, Andrea's textable, Andrea's out completely. Up to you. This is a personal time. This is a client call. Do not call me, right? So like maybe there's some kind of code there. But I would just ask yourself, what information is going to benefit your team? Do they need to know?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right, let's look at this framework. This is called the FIGHT framework. This is going to be something that you're going to be able to remember. You can take a screenshot of this. You can write this down. This is how we stop burnout. We're going to fight it. We're going to find the friction. Where are you resisting reality? Because then in we're going to identify our internal narrative. What's the story that we're telling ourselves that's creating this pressure? Because guess what? It's the story that we're telling ourselves. Even just in Andrea's question, she's like, "Ugh, I'm putting so much like stress. We're stressing about what we put on our calendar, right? This shouldn't take up that much brain space. We're overcomplicating things. We're like, Andrea's like, well, but if I say personal time, then they're going to know that I'm going to a doctor's office. And like, maybe it's a personal doctor. Maybe I don't want them to know that I'm going to a doctor. Maybe I don't want them to know that I'm going to kiddo's soccer game. Maybe I don't want them to know these things. But maybe your team doesn't care. Maybe your team is just like, why don't you just say personal? Let's move on. Right? Like, are you internally telling yourself a story that is a bigger deal than it actually is? And then G, get honest. What do you actually want? What is no longer working? What do you want to get out of this situation? What do you want to get out of this, whatever you are fighting? And then H, honor your capacity. This is the quote unquote alignment. This is the congruency. High performers burn out when they expect 100% constantly. I was a Division I athlete in NCAA school, and we will win conference championships. And my coach would tell me all the time, you need to give 110%. Humans cannot give 110%. First of all, there's only 100% of you. And at least 20% of that is just existing in a homeostasis place, a vegetable state. So the reality is every single day, your all is still only 70, 80%. They did a study, and I think this is crazy. This is one of my favorite studies. They did a study. This is not on the reference sheet, so sorry if you want to read this, but I'll give it to you. They did a study and they had sprinters. They had track. They had track sprinters running a 400. And they told them, okay, get ready. You're going to do a 400-meter sprint. And they said, sounds good. And they said, I want you to run at 110%. And they said, sounds good. They sprinted and did 110%. Then they waited about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Bodies recovered, right? 400 meters is nothing super, super crazy, but these sprinters are pretty ready for it. So half an hour, 45 minutes go by, and they go, okay, now we want you to run 80%. And they ran it again. Which one do you think was faster? My resident runner, Nolan, do you think you know which one is faster?
Well, I'm going to be so surprised if it's not the 110%, but the way that you're saying this makes me think the 80%. But anyways, I'm curious about the rationale. That's amazing
Yeah.
way. But I would say the 110%, but I think I'm wrong.
Yeah. So it's the 80%, right? Why? Because if you were to flex every muscle in your body, you have muscles that counteract each other. So when you're running, your quads and your hamstrings are both working, right? So your thigh muscle and then the big muscle that's on the back of your leg, right? Those work against each other. If you flex your quad, your hamstring has to relax. So if you go 110%, both muscles are going to be flexing. And guess what? They're going to be working against each other. But if you go 80% and you have some relaxation in the body, your quad can flex, your thigh muscle, and then when it releases, your hamstring flexes. Okay. So that's why that happens is 80% is actually faster, is more efficient because at 110%, they burn themselves out so much quicker. So we need to honor what actually is your capacity, the quote unquote alignment, congruency, whatever you want to call it. What is 80% for you? Because that's more sustainable than going 110%. Lastly, trust yourself. Trust, confidence, certainty. These are all interchangeable language. Actually trusting yourself. The goal is to never not struggle. The goal is to actually to make sure that every struggle doesn't turn into this massive self-war that happens internally. Okay. So everything that happens in your brain is not all completely true. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Okay. I'm going to absolutely take this last few minutes that awareness is truly just step one. Nothing that I shared with you today was groundbreaking information. But the awareness is just simply becoming aware. Next step is regulation. If you had this thought, this is exactly what I do. Wow, I need this. Wow. But you don't change the patterns. So often you have all of this information. You've known this before. If you work out of alignment with who you are, then yeah, of course you're going to burn out. If you put too many things on your plate, of course you're going to burn out. You knew all of this information. The problem is not that you didn't know this information. The problem is you're not intentionally using this information. And that's where mental performance coaching comes in. Because in the moment, it doesn't feel like I'm fighting an internal battle. It feels like I should be stressed. I have to keep going. It feels like I should be doing these things. Of course, I should. Of course, I am. What you need is to interrupt them in real time. And often, outside of you, a third party is how you're going to actually do that. Because can an athlete go to the Olympics without a coach? Yeah, it's possible, but they're going to have to work a hell of a lot harder to get there. Every single Olympian hires a coach to tell them what their body is capable of and what they are capable of doing. And business owners need the exact same thing. You need to actually train your brain and outsmart your brain. So I do one-on-one mental performance coaching. This is not just mindset work. This is not just, you can do it, I got you, pep talk every single week. This is actually knowing and understanding that we're going to stop the overthinking. We are going to stop what your brain is overdoing for you. This emotional distress and discomfort that has been happening for years. I'm going to drop what that QR code takes you to in the chat. It is a free 30 minutes. I call it a brain audit. There are no strings attached. We will talk about coaching at the end, but if you just want to understand what your biggest struggle is, you want to understand what your brain is doing and how you keep getting in your own way to stop burnout, make sure you sign up for this 30 minutes. Because when you actually train your brain, leaders are able to make faster, cleaner decisions. You'll stop second guessing yourself. You'll make sure that you can delegate and trust your team. How many of you have a team that you don't trust? That you're like, why can't they read my mind? Why can't they do what I want them to do? You can handle more visibility. You can handle more success. You can handle more revenue, and you won't be having the same problems that you have been showing up with. So I start with 12 weeks. They're one-on-one coaching sessions. I think it's a really, really great way to get into your brain. And we talk about the business relationships. We talk about the business identity, who you are, personal accountability. So go ahead and scan that QR code or click that link in the chat. I'm going to stay a little bit after. I know we are quite literally exactly at 1 p.m. But I'm going to stay. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute, ask me if you want to talk about coaching, if you want to talk about burnout, if you want to talk about anything, like let me know. Also, here are my references if you want to screenshot them and look them up and do some more research on all the things that we talked about today. Like I said, I'm a sucker for research. So that's where all of that stuff comes from. But this is what we talk about. Is outsmarting our brain.
Thank you so much, Karina. That was really lots of great information there. Gave us all a lot to think about, I think.
Good, how are you?
Yay.
Does anyone have any last thoughts or anything they want to ask Karina before we end our meeting here?
Oh, good. Thank you, Karina.
Of course. Thank you guys. Appreciate ya.
This has been recorded and will be posted on the IEA YouTube page by the end of the week. So if you want to share it with someone you know and love, please look for it there and feel free to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right,
Appreciate
everybody,
it.
have a great day. Thanks, Karina.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Lisa.
Good
Thanks for
job,
having
Karina.
me. Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
You are the best.
Thanks, John.